takes staff almost a day to go through all the email servers, to get all these, to do a search, do a query, and then actually burn the records in on a CD. Now, if it's a simple, all emails for the last week, that's a simple one, So this is what I said in the beginning of this request. It all depends on the type of public records request, and the volume, how much volume it takes, and the volume and the time constraints. So those are the things that I have to consider.
Last question, sir. Do we have things, for example, as contracts? Are they on a disc? Are they electronically, or are they on paper? If somebody want to get a contract or RFQ or something.
In the clerk's office, we've digitized everything. So we don't really get public records requests for documents that we store because we have everything online now.
Perfect, okay.
So, for example, if a person want a copy of a particular resolution or an official city contract, they go online and they pull it themselves. So we don't get those type of requests. The only requests we do get is when we have to funnel it to different departments. And like I think the mayor said, unfortunately, not every department has had the time to digitize their office like we have. Well, that's a promise I made when I ran for office. So we were scanning the day I walked in. We have to do that, and the manager and I discussed that in every department. We're hoping that we can get it modernized, but unfortunately, Councilman Desiree, we don't have it. It's really paper.
Okay, but Mr. Clerk, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, to correct you, it was already electronized before you came in. Thank you. And Carol, you can attest.
Actually, the same way we do for the charter, for example, the charter is available online, right?
Correct.
But if you want to print it from wherever you are, then you have to pay for it. So why can't all records be like that? No, not all records. The charter is like that. Maybe it's open to the public to view. But if they want to actually print a section of the charter, they have to actually pay for that.
Go ahead.
So I think this is something that we can actually work on.
We are looking into that, but I'll let the budget director address it.
Earlier this year, at the very beginning of the fiscal year, we did purchase a transparency module for Eden. They'll start listing all of our budgetary, any vendors, everything that goes out, the checks,
All the
everything.
checks,
All of that will be online, and we're just waiting to implement it, but we already made the purchase of that to move forward. So what you're asking, we're in the process of developing it now.
Okay, so and all records, files, that
everything, down to the last check, to
employees'
every
files
vendor,
too?
the checks to every
What
vendor,
about employees'
everything
files?
would be posted on file.
Employees' files.
Well, employees' files, there are certain rules, as the city attorney talked
Yes.
about, that has to be redacted, social security numbers,
Yes,
and
okay.
any driver's license information, anything that is, sort of personal information that cannot be posted, it has to be redacted.
Okay, so how you want to proceed, Councilman Galvin, with the item?
It stands as put forward tonight unless staff right now wants to make some sort of specific recommendation. Seeing none, I make the motion. Yes, Mr.
The
Clark.
only recommendation we had today was the first one where we're going to replace within 48 hours. We're going to change that to 2 business days.
2 business
That's
days.
the First Amendment. The Second Amendment is where it says
100
no fees or costs will be charged for public records requests under 100 page. We're going to remove 100 pages to 15 pages.
First 15 page.
Correct, Aline? 15 pages
Yes,
from
that's
100?
correct,
So
15.
those are the 2 amendments we have to date. 15 pages, and instead of
What
48
about
hours,
the
2 business days.
recommendation from
Oh,
the media?
I think the city,
Because when the media,
You guys are right. It's just the same thing across the board.
the city attorney has an amendment.
I have a question just for clarification purposes. So there are 4 sections to this resolution. The first is documents under 100 pages or less must be provided. We've made the change to 2 business days. So does that still stand? Documents under 100 pages will be provided within 2 business days.
I think
15
it's-
days. we
I think
changed it to
the
15
clerk is
pages.
recommending it be 15 pages and
15
more,
pages or more.
Free
and 15 pages and
or
more.
less.
15 pages and less.
For
and
free,
over
as
15.
well as.
Right. I'm
We
willing
can
to.
do-
I
we
think
can
that's
do
a
2
small
business days.
threshold,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm willing to let it ride tonight, and then we can revisit if people are banging on my door still saying, "Why am I not getting my documentation quickly?" The first question in my mouth is going to be, "How many documents are you asking for?" If they're going 14, 15, 16, 17, if it's in that window, then I'm going to come back to this at a different meeting and say we need to bump this up or something like that. But for now, I can say 15 and less.
So that's the third amendment. So wherever it says 100 pages, we're going to remove 100 pages and replace it with 15 pages.
But you also recommend that
That's the third amendment, right?
we waive the fee for the media.
No, no,
No,
no.
that's-
You recommend that?
No, but they told me no.
Because we need to understand, when the media requests an information, it's for you, it's not for them. They're not gonna keep it. It's to put the information out there for you. Sometimes you don't even know about the information. They're the one that put it out there for you.
I believe that if the media is making a request, they should be getting it as free as anybody else. So we shouldn't be charging
Yeah,
media
exactly.
for. I'm pulling up.
That's
the
when the
text of
first
the
15
amendment right
days
now,
is
and
gonna
I
be free
apologize,
for
I don't have
everybody.
it open in front of me.
Well, okay?
All right, so let me just read out the three amendments to this particular resolution. The first amendment is that we're going to remove.
Now, before you go, Mr. Clerk, and let me ask Madam Attorney one question, because we may be violating some kind of laws what if the records that are being requested cost, let's say, $50, and the person cannot afford to pay the $50? Wouldn't that be unconstitutional for that person to not get access to that information only because he or she cannot pay?
The Florida statute allows for reasonable fees. It's in the statute.
What's
Because you don't have like a constitutional right to get a paper product from the,
No?
you know,
They-
you
they
have,
can come
you
look at
have, you have a right to get access to it, reasonable access. And so the cost for the government to produce the document is transferred to the requester. So the statute allows for reasonable costs in the public records law.
And I've just double checked that the resolution tonight does not differentiate between residents and the media at all. It says requestor.
Correct.
Whoever the requestor is, they get it within blank hours, blank pages, etc.
Yes.
You want me to read out the amendments, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
The first amendment that was made to the resolution was to replace where it says 48 hours, replace that to 2 business days. The second amendment is that no fees or costs will be charged under 15 pages. And the third is we're going to remove everywhere
Not
where it
under
says
15
100.
pages, up to 15 pages.
Okay, yeah, 15 pages or above.
Or less.
15 pages
Or less.
We're going
and
to
less,
right.
1 through 15 free,
Free, exactly.
16 and
16
over.
and
Above 100 right. So no legal fees or costs will be charged up to 15 pages.
Up to 15,
Everything
yeah.
above 15 pages, they have to pay the reasonable fee we have in our administrative reg. And last but not least, which kind of apparently bring this all to a close, wherever it says 100 pages, is going to be replaced with 15 pages throughout the resolution. And that's the amendment. Do I have a motion to approve the amendment as, this particular tab?
move.
Second.
Motion was made by Mayor Smith to approve, seconded by Councilman Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item M passes with the amendments, 5-0. Tab,
Somebody working on the AC.
tab N.
They're probably sleeping on it.
Steal your pencil, my pen. Proposed ordinance, second reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending Article 5 under Division 9 entitled Fences, Walls, and Other Similar Structures, specifically as Section 5-901 entitled General Standards for Residential and Non-Residential Districts, and Section 5-902 entitled Maximum Height, to clearly establish appropriate regulations for the construction and use of, opaque fences and walls in residential districts, and to further organize and streamline the specific sections for greater clarity and consistency with the intent of North Miami Comprehensive Plan, providing for repeal, conflict, severability, codification, and an effective date.
There is no staff presentation, right? Because it's a second
It's the
reading.
second reading. I think we had everything last
Everything-
council meeting.
Okay, we'll have a short session of public hearing. Public hearing is now open on tab N as in Nancy.
Yeah, I might be the only person speaking on this, Sarah McDevitt, 14490 Northeast 10th Avenue, but I did since that last meeting, just go out and take a few pictures around my neighborhood of concerning corners. There's a lot of corners in our area that have really unattractive fencing, and you know, the corner sets the precedent for what's happening down the rest of the block. And you know, time and again, we're seeing chain link fencing being used in front yards, corners that have a lot of chain link going into opaque fencing that, you know, there's no clear delineation of where the front of the house is and where the side of the house is, and it's just kind of a mishmash. And so while I appreciate that everybody needs to be able to enjoy their backyards, I think that clear direction on how the backyard is laid out and where the front of the house is and what kind of fencing can be used in the front of the house is really important, because when you see chain link kind of running into the front yard and a small patch that's just a driveway being left, it doesn't look very good, and it kind of hurts the overall aesthetics of our neighborhoods.
Carol Prager, Arch Creek East. I'm confused about Sarah's comments about chain link fences.
That's not addressed in this.
That's
at
not
all.
addressing, thank you very much, because I had a issue with that. Thanks.
Good evening, council. I commend everybody up there for working without air conditioning. Robert Husted, 1150 Northeast 123rd Street, and I also have a corner property. And I also had a difficulty with the fencing issue. I agree to some extent that the front of the house on a corner should be open. Mine is open. My side yard has a 5-foot fence. My other side yard has a 6-foot fence. It looks very nice. And the front yard is open to the street. And since it is open to the street, it makes it look a lot more attractive. So, you know, Miami Shores requires that all houses are open to the street unless it's landscaped with shrubbery. Biscayne Park has their houses open to the street. North Miami has a lot of fenced-in front yards, and I do agree that it does detract from the look of the neighborhood, just like parking on the swales do. So thank you very much for your time.
Back for a third time. Rosa Castillo, 585 Northwest 126th Street, District 4, and I live on a corner lot. I live on a corner lot right next to the I-95 on-ramp, right next to it, okay? I have no privacy in my backyard because my backyard is a 6-foot chain link fence. We don't have a hedge because we have a half-acre lot that everybody can see through. I cannot feel comfortable in my own backyard doing my gardening or anything because everybody's looking in my backyard. I've even had people just jump over my fence, my 6-foot chain link fence, just to get our mangoes. We have 6 mango trees and people just don't care. They think because it's a chain link fence that it's not a fence. They can just see through our backyard, see if I'm there or not, if my husband's there or not, and they just choose to do whatever they want. I can't stop that unless I have an opaque fence. I also have 4 dogs. I think about the safety of my future family. I would like to have kids one day and have them running around the backyard without people just being able to look into our backyard. I would like to also get a pool. You know, I wouldn't want my kids to just be running around my backyard with traffic, the on-ramp traffic, just looking through.
All right, public hearing is now closed. My only recommendation about the mangoes would be just to get them on a big container and then put them on the side so they won't have to jump on the fence. It's supposed to be funny, but.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of the ordinance.
I second that.
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin and was seconded by Mayor Smith Joseph. Councilman Bienemay?
May I make one comment while he's coming back?
He's not back up.
I think this is a great ordinance. I just want to bring up to staff and council that one of these, that this ordinance does not address the fact that we have a lot of commercial uses and residential properties because of grandfathering or not. And if you have a commercial use in a residential property, you don't have to comply with the stricter requirements of commercial property. And I would like staff to address that issue. I don't think we can do it this evening, but I think going forward, there's a lot of places that have chain link fences in residential because they're in R4s, R5s. They're around here. We've kind of gotten mixed, and they don't have those requirements of having the opaque fences and shielding their residents from, their neighbor residential areas from garbage, containers, storage of cars, etc. So this is something I would like to direct staff to work on, but this is a good start. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to continue with the roll call. Councilman Desiree,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Councilman Gowan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys.
Yes.
And I'll record BNMA's vote when he come back. Before the record, it passes at this moment 4-0. That's regarding tab N. Tab O, proposed ordinances of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 21 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Code Compliance by amending Article 2 entitled Code Compliance Procedures at Division 1 entitled Code Compliance Notice of Violation Procedure, specifically at Section 21-20 entitled Fines, Costs of Repairs, to increase the maximum daily fines for code violations, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That was tab O, Mayor.
The staff doesn't have any presentation, so we'll go to public hearing. Do we?
No, second reading.
Yeah.
Everything we did last meeting.
Public hearing is now closed.
Yeah.
Public hearing is closed.
Oh.
You didn't run. Actually, you did a couple of weeks ago.
Good evening again. Wislin Philip, 12205 Northeast Miami Court. Just a few things since I wasn't there during the first, I watched it at home. Anytime that we're trying to do changes like this, which will affect our public, our residents, I'm always concerned about the education piece of it. It's great to put fines, it's great, but when people don't understand, then we're just setting them up for failure. And each one of you guys, excuse me, I don't mean you, that's just the way I talk, all right? Each one of the council members as well as the mayor, I think you should work on putting together some workshop or some meetings so your residents could come out and understand. Because let me tell you, home ownership here means a whole lot different than home ownership since I'm from Haiti, that's what I know. So it's different from owning a home in Haiti. So what people believe that they can do with their property, we have to understand. We have to educate our residents and don't try to, what's the word, got you type of thing. So it's great that we're trying to fine tune the codes, but making sure for code compliance, but we also want to make sure we work with our residents so that they can understand. Because I had to do the same thing with my neighbor and help him to understand why having a dog and taking care of the dog and why it's important, because if your dog runs and bite my grandchildren, you and I will no longer be neighbors. Thank you.
All right, public hearing.
Comment, suggestion. I agree. There's a lot of education that needs to be going on out there in North Miami. I might suggest to the city to consider a new homeownership package that should be given out when you go to City Hall to turn the water on. And I think that might help homeowners to give them the days that the garbage is picked up, the days that recycled, what the rules are. It could be in Spanish, French, Spanish, English, and Creole. And it's something I think that would save the city a lot of headaches and save the residents a lot of misunderstandings. Thank you.
Okay, public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, may I clarify on this, since we're going to talk about education? I intend that this only be instituted for people who are illegally renting their home in the short term. I recognize that the opportunity is there to apply it to other violators, but woe to our city staff if they now start fining the little old lady with the peeling painted facade $1,000 a day. That's not where this is supposed to be taking us. This is supposed to be giving us teeth for those people who are violating, in addition to other things, the short-term rentals. And your look is well taken. I'm speaking for myself, so that it's not misconstrued amongst the public. We are not intending to start running out and citing people for their 1-inch overgrown grass $1,000 a day.
And I would just caution that we can't misapply the law and have equal protection issues, right? So we can't focus on one particular group and not another, and not equally apply it. So we just have to be careful about that.
All right. Any other comments on the item?
Could we possibly consider keeping the lower rate for the first offense? I know where we're going, and if we're truly looking at these rentals, it's not the first offense that's bothering us. It's the repeat. That's where the problem is.
It's the first offense,
The
Carol.
first offense.
I'm gonna. Everybody who calls me this weekend, I'm giving you Councilwoman Key's cell phone number. I'll find it and I'll give it to you.
They already call me,
Right.
Scott, and I
Trust
already
me,
go out there.
Yeah, it's not just the repeats, it's the first time. There's a lot of first time violators out there, so.
Mr. Clerk, let's go for a vote.
Mayor, we need a motion and a second. We don't have a motion or a second
I
yet.
thought we already had
So
one.
moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab O. It was seconded by Councilman Desume. Vice Mayor Keys,
Yes?
Councilman Bienaimé,
Yes.
Councilman Desume,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yep.
Councilman Galvin.
Yes.
This item was approved 5-0. And just to go back pursuant to our resolution, I need to record the vote of Councilman Bienaimé regarding tab N. Councilman Bienaimé, how do you vote?
Which is,
Tab N.
The opaque fences.
what was it? The fence?
Yeah, the corner
Yeah.
fences.
Yes.
Motion, Councilman Bienaimé voted yes to tab N, so the final count, item passed 5-0. Tab P, proposed ordinances, second reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending Article 4, Division 3, entitled Non-Residential Districts, specifically at Section 5-302, entitled Uses Permitted, to establish retail showroom automobile as a special exception use in the C2BW zoning district to foster economic growth, and amending Article 7 at Section 7-101, entitled Definitions, to provide for a definition of retail showroom automobile, as well as establishing clear regulations for said use consistent with the intent of the North Miami Comprehensive Plan, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That was tab P.
Through the mayor, this is a second reading again.
Second reading, and we already had a presentation.
Right, and it's, what is termed the Volvo dealership.
Yeah. You want to add something?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. The project is just getting better and better. We've already overwhelmingly supported it 2 weeks ago. The response from the community has been very well. So we're looking forward. If you'd like us to do another presentation, we have nice, pretty pictures again, but I think you all know it, and it's getting late in the evening. Any questions that you may have or from the public, we're happy to answer. Thank you.
All right. Public hearing is now open on the item. Item P. Public hearing is now closed. Member of the dais?
Move approval.
Second.
Have comments, please?
Go ahead.
I will make it brief, but I'm going to repeat my objections that our LDRs state that no vehicle displays, no vehicle sales, and no vehicle services are allowed in this district. And I don't see how putting it in a different package, moving it around, makes it any more legal than what it's not a permitted use. It's still not a permitted use. Our C2BW is a special district. It's to enhance the high quality of commercial area in the city. Auto sales, auto repairs, and a 49% used car lot doesn't quite smell like high quality commercial to me. That being said, you know, if the council approves it, looking forward to working with Volvo. The owner here Fernando has made strict promises that they will keep the test drives out of Keystone Point. But again, this is a text amendment for an entire district, part of which lies in my district. So thank you. I know you'll be a good neighbor, but anybody else going in, we don't have those same promises. So that's it.
Any other comment? Mr. Clerk?
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin and was seconded by Councilman Bieneme. Councilman Galvin, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys?
No.
Councilman Bieneme?
Yes.
Councilman Desume?
Yes.
Mayor Joseph?
Yep.
Item passes 4-1.
Thank you very much.
Tab Q, proposed ordinance, first reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 5 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Building Standards and Regulations by amending Article 4 entitled Minimum Housing Standards, specifically at Section 5-30 entitled Occupancy Standards, to prohibit the advertisement of rentals of single-family homes for periods of less than 3 months, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
So this item came from the last meeting wherein Councilman Galvin wanted to make an amendment to the rental ordinance and just focus on advertising. So because it was substantially changed, we brought it back for first reading. And so this will just focus on the prohibition of advertisement under less than 3 months for short-term rentals.
Thank you. Any other staff comment? If not, we'll go to public hearing. Public hearing is now open on tab Q. Public hearing is closed. Members?
Claudio Sanchez, 1125 Northeast, 123rd Street. Mr. Mayor, congratulations. You are doing a good job. You never see me before because I don't have to complain against you. Alex, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Bien-Ahmed, you are doing a good job. And you too. Now let me talk about short rental. I don't know why you are against that. What you have to do is create the regulation for that. We can get money from short rental. We can create a program that control short rental. Why not? Why you say no and close your eyes and decide no, it's not convenient? Do the research. Go to Spain, Portugal, go to New York. Everywhere there is short rental. We will continue doing what we do, saying no with no reason, and we don't know why we say no. They are legalizing marijuana right now. $50, a ticket, $100. That's what you have to do. Let's do that together. I would like to have the opportunity to hire short rental. I own a duplex, and it's better to rent in $1,000 daily, like Scott said, than rent a house for $1,000 every 30 days. Which one is better? Then you need to find the way to tax that money, to tax that business. But don't go against that. Thank you.
William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I think that's a rather good point, and that was my concern expressed last council meeting. There are problems when some people are abusing this privilege and they're overcrowding a house and they have too much noise and too much activity going on, and that is indeed a problem. But to throw this blanket over every possibility throughout the city would probably be a challenge for some people who are trying to make ends meet. It's really common these days with the taxi cab industry. There's now Uber in competition with it. You know that the cable industry has its form of competition. Well, the hotel industry, people are making it up with Airbnb and other means of supplementing their income and filling in these gaps. It would be great if this could be somehow rewritten so that it is focused on those problem spots and those problem people, and that our enforcement doesn't have to just look on the internet constantly and constantly go out to all these different locations, even though it may be quiet, even though it may be a complement to a possible neighborhood, bringing in people from the area to enjoy our North Miami environment and to enjoy South Florida, rather than putting our hands up and pushing them away. So I'd like you to reconsider how this might be written so that it could be of best benefit for everyone. Thank you.
Carol Prager, Arch Creek East. I cannot disagree more with the last two speakers. We are a bedroom community. We are a community of single-family homes and multi-unit condos and apartments. I have residents who live down at the end of the street on 135th Street who are on the canal, and they suffer every single weekend until 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with people having parties, and the noise that is magnified by the water is just crazy. I just don't think it's a good fit for the city of North Miami. Airbnb is great for South Beach or any place where it's heavily populated by tourism. But in a bedroom community, we're predominantly single-family homes and condos. I don't think that's a good fit for us at all.
Public hearing.
Everybody's got to speak on everything tonight. Frequent flyer program about awareness.
Again, Jacques Despinos, 95 Northeast 131 Street. Be careful for what you ask and you might get it. Don't send the wrong signal to all the hooker and the pimp out there. North Miami is welcome for them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take our last intervener for the night on this item. Go ahead.
Yes, Silvia Mayolo, 800 North 124th Street. We say something in my country, live and let them to live. And it's an open view of everything. If you regulate the rent, it's more money for the city. And if you don't regulate any way, most of my neighbors have a lot of people living in the house, and you won't do anything. It's better to regulate that and live and let them to live.
Alrighty, public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, may I clarify?
Go ahead.
Short-term rentals of 3 months and less have been illegal in the city of North Miami since 2008. Allow me to restate. Short-term rentals of 3 months and less have been illegal in the city of North Miami since 2008. That hasn't changed. All this is saying is that you can't advertise said illegal operations. It's like I'm telling and I'm sorry to use the comparison, but it's the only one that jumps to mind. It's like I'm telling the drug dealer he can't advertise the fact that he's a drug dealer. If you are already doing something that is illegal in the city, renting 3 months or less, this just simply says you can't advertise that. So that's all this is doing. This isn't changing anything else.
May I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
The way this resolution was originally written, you had 1 year. I spoke to the attorney and I said, well, that's kind of harsh. How about if we do it to 9 months? I was surprised to see it go down to 3 months. Will this 3-month language hurt us with regard to the grandfathering in of our ordinance we passed in 2009?
Yeah, no, so one has nothing to do with the other.
Okay.
All of this is just doing is the advertising,
Okay.
not what we discussed was the actual regulation
Okay.
of short-term rentals. And that's something that, I don't know whether you want to discuss it now, but, whether you can certainly ask me to come back with an ordinance regulating 9 months or less, or
That's-
6 months or
if
less.
we don't get in
but this-
trouble losing our ordinance. Very good analogy by Councilman Galvin. Thank you.
I was gonna say speeding through red lights, but then we'd all be getting in trouble.
Now I'm gonna kick you.
Any other comment?
No.
Mayor, I need a motion and a second to approve tab Q.
So moved.
Second. Go ahead.
Motion was made by Councilman Galvin. It was seconded by Councilman Desume.
Yeah, but Terry.
Mayor,
No, she can have it. That's
I heard
fine.
both people.
I
made
know,
the
you
call.
could
I
go
made
go
the
ahead,
call.
give it to
I'm sorry.
Council Vice
I
Mayor
already stated
Keys.
on the record it was Desume. So it's Councilman Galvin, seconded by Councilwoman Keys. So that's a correction. Motion was made by Councilman Galvin. It was seconded by Councilwoman Keys. Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys,
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme,
Yes.
Councilman Desume.
Yes.
Item passes 5-0. Tab R, proposed ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 12 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Nuisances by amending Article 3 entitled Maintenance of Swell Areas, specifically at section 12-10 entitled Standards of Maintenance, to prohibit the placement of items on trees in the swell area, providing for repeal conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date.
Through the mayor, what this resolution actually outlines is, the city owns all the trees in the right-of-way, or public right-of-way, and that's the area between the back of the sidewalk on one side of the street to the back of the sidewalk on the other side. And if you look in your package, there's lots of pictures that is associated with this ordinance. Homeowners are actually putting swings for little kids in these swale areas, and it's a potential liability on the city because kids are being, let to play in the swale area, and they also run into the streets, which creates another hazard. So what this ordinance does is actually prevents using the swale trees as swings and playgrounds for kids. If you look at it, you will see what I'm talking about, And that's basically what this ordinance does. It removes the liability or the inherent liability on the city.
Okay.
What about Halloween decorations? That they're prohibited now under our ordinance? Excuse me, Mr.
What
Mayor.
type of Halloween decorations? Are you being facetious?
Somewhat, but it says you can't put anything in a tree, so when everybody hangs their little ghosts and stuff, they're gonna be in violation.
I don't think they can because
They can't?
The only issue is from the pictures taken, our risk management actually went out and took pictures of some of these, situations that have occurred. And what this ordinance is actually, prevents a liability on the city. That's all it is.
I'm happy to report it's nice and cool on the first floor.
Is there water down there?
public hearing is now open.
Yes, sir. Carol Prager, question to the city manager regarding the trees. Is there something else that covers the nailing of signs and everything? Is that covered under something else
Yeah, I
already?
believe that is covered in another area in the code, yes.
You believe, or it is?
I think I'll have to refer to the attorney.
All right, because I have pictures on my phone of someone who posted 32 lost dog posters
All
on
over the
all of the
street.
trees on the medians in my neighborhood with a nail gun.
Oh,
So I want to know, is there something that addresses that? If you're going to cover the trees all the way.
Right? Public hearing is not closed. All council members?
Move approval.
Second.
So I had a question. Sorry, sir. I have.
State your name and address.
My name is Howard Tonkin, 12600 Griffin Boulevard. I have some beautiful cacti vines and some endangered species of vines growing on my trees on my swell, because my swell trees are actually diseased and really ugly black olive trees. And I also have rocks and wildflowers and some other endangered species on my swell. So I was wondering if that's affected by this, or you're just talking about swings and stuff.
It's just swings. I believe the ordinance was written.
No, it's
Go ahead.
the ordinance is general in nature, but you're talking about rocks and vegetation. Well, I wouldn't consider that an item. That,
All right.
Mayor, we do have a motion and we have a second. The motion was made by Councilman Galvin. It was seconded by Vice Mayor Keys. Would you like me to proceed
Go
with
ahead.
roll call?
Roll call.
Councilman Desiree?
Yes.
Mayor Joseph?
Yes.
Councilman Galvin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Keys?
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme? Item passes. Tab R passes 5-0. Tab S, discussion and potential direction given regarding legal collection from individuals of IRS fines incurred. That was tab S.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and staff, for entertaining this item this evening. I think it's incredibly unfair and unjust that the actions of some current and mostly former city employees have cost the taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. We have a history of incurring fines by governmental entities. The city just writes a check and the taxpayers have paid the bill. There's no penalty to those who are actually the ones responsible for the items that we were charged for. In the case of a large HUD fine that we voted as a council to pay, I couldn't do anything about it but vote no. But now, I think in the case of the IRS fines, which we did not vote necessarily for the city to pay, I think the city should pay the bill, and then we should take all legal steps necessary and possible to go after those responsible to get the taxpayers' money back, so that if they, with their individual actions, cost the city money, it shouldn't be the taxpayers that pays for that, it should be them. So I'd hope the council would help, give direction to staff tonight to take those steps.
This is a discussion item. We're coming up with it for the first time. Anyone else who has any comment?
Can I say something, Mayor?
Feel free to speak.
I agree with Councilman Galvin, with the exception, I believe some of the fines were incurred by some staff who also traveled. I think we're talking mostly travel fines. And I think some of the staff, that was part of their job description to accompany people. And I would really like to not penalize those staff who do not make the big bucks and who were required to go as attachés or whatever, and I would like to not have to go after those people.
Well, then where do we draw the line between who's responsible and who's not? Everybody will say, well, I'm not responsible because my boss approved it. I'm not responsible because it was part of my job. The IRS has said it was wrong. I mean, there was documentation that wasn't handed in. There was no documentable justification for these trips and things like that. I mean, it's either they're responsible or they're responsible. And I don't think that our taxpayers should be responsible for a dime of it. And it should all come back onto the people that incurred the fine. Somebody has to be responsible. At some point, this city has to start holding people responsible for their actions. There's a state audit that's going on right now. I mean, what do we do if next month the state walks in and says, boom, here's blank dollar fine for the things that you've done in the past? Are we all just going to look at each other and go, well, okay, taxpayers, more money out of your pocket? I mean, when do we start saying to those that are responsible, you're responsible, and pay up?
you don't think we can delineate who were staff that were required to go? You don't think
Are
we
you
can?
referring to retroactive misconducts or current or?
Yeah, for the IRS fines that we recently incurred that were about $35,000, that's what I'm talking about. I can't go back and get the HUD money. We effectively absolved that situation as a council voting on it. And I think I'm the only one who was on the council then when that vote was taken. But I think for the $35,000 that was just incurred, we should go after our money and get that if at all possible. And get ready, because if a state audit comes back with something else, we might have to do it again
And
at some point.
do we have any document on that? I mean, I know we're discussing something in the dark without anything in front of us.
I believe I sent documentation on this with the IRS fines. And what I believe Councilman Galvin is referring to is the $18,962.80 that is being assessed for various city travel to Haiti. And they actually itemized in their report, in their final report, they itemized.
What period of time did these travels occur?
I believe it's 2012 to 2013, during that period. The tax year. It's tax year 2012 to 2013.
So
now, were these expenses? Were they what I really want to say? Were they okayed by any head of department or any managerial staff?
The then city manager okayed a lot of it, but he didn't follow guidelines and procedures in approving it. There were cash advances given to people that never had authorization to accept that cash. How that cash got into their hands, I'd love for somebody to give me that answer finally. Cash advances given to two individuals. It was approved for one, and then she was supposed to hand in all the receipts for it. She didn't, but somehow the cash ended up split between two individuals. So the second individual got cash, never provided the receipts as required by city statutes, and then we're paying the IRS for the fact that we violated our own rules. That individual got, I'm not going to bring anybody's names into any of this. Please don't make me get into the names. But that individual profited by getting the cash and then us paying the fine for it.
Right, and I believe in the situation that you're describing, I did talk to the IRS auditor about it, and his exact words were public purpose. What is it to the city residents and the purpose of the trip? I know that the attorney will argue that whether it was approved through any other method or by who it was approved, but public purpose comes back into the purpose of travel. What benefit it was to the residents and the city of North Miami residents for cashing the check. And what we provided was insufficient information and backup on this situation that you're describing. The other situation that we talked about was a toy drive, and the example that he brought up, there was over $2,000 spent on the trip to Haiti to distribute toys in the value of $1,200. So again, what was the public purpose of this trip? In my conversation with the auditors, with the tax auditors, this is what came up. There are some of the other parts of the trips that was allocated to the employees as an excess benefit. An amended W-2s or 1099s were issued to these employees, and the city's fine for not assessing those benefits or those added benefits was $18,000 in fines to the IRS.
And to be totally clear, I want us to recoup if possible, the entire $35,000. That includes paying vendors when the vendors' records weren't on file here, however they've framed that. So I'm not just looking at travel. I'm not just looking at toy drives. We paid dozens of vendors and didn't even check to see if their paperwork was legit. Who knows to this day who we wrote checks to? There were no checks and balances for a period of time. I'm going to hope that it was just 2012, but there was zero checks and balances. We were just writing a check. You need check? Here you go. You need to split that check in half? Go ahead, do it. I mean, It was Katie bar the door, and taxpayers right now are the only ones who've had to pay the price, not any of those individuals. So you want to say, okay, I'll go this far with it. You want to say that all of those staff members, they're not responsible because their boss approved it? Let's go after the boss. Let's go after that person.
Okay, I'll go for
Because,
that.
because if he signed off on paperwork and did not get receipts as our city procedures say he should have, if there's no demonstrable proof for all of this stuff and it all goes through him, I'll take that.
So I think there needs to be some understanding with respect to what occurred. I'm not a finance person, but from my understanding, there were two separate categories. So there's a category for the failure to do the W-2s or W-2s
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah, the 1099.
The 1099s correctly. And
Mhm.
so that amounted to approximately,
There's a breakdown here in the package. I can,
no, that was maybe 20-something thousand dollars. Okay.
$18,962.
Okay, so for the travel money, my understanding is that the IRS looked at certain travel expenditures and asked the city, these folks traveled, please provide me documentation to substantiate that the travel were for city business, public purpose, and so on and so forth. My understanding is that the city failed to provide the IRS any documentation supporting the need for the travel or whether some of them were council approved, whether some of them were part of Sister City International. There was no documentation submitted to the IRS to show why the folks traveled when they traveled. And as a result, the IRS says, okay, well, you're not giving me anything, so then I have to assume that these trips were personal in nature. So what the IRS does is say, okay, Mr. X, you received a benefit of $1,000, so we're going to add that to your salary, right? So because now you have received an additional $1,000 to your salary, the city should have taxed you or withheld taxes for that $1,000. And so that is the monies that now the city has to withhold. So the city is not being fined or assessed. The city has to withhold additional monies because the IRS made the conclusion that these were personal trips. Now, I believe, and the city manager can correct me if I'm wrong, that the finance director has certain documents that we've not given to the IRS and that we will be given these documents to the IRS to show whether or not these trips were actually legitimate city business trips, i.e. whether they were supported by any actions of the city council, whether they were supported by any Sister City International project, and so forth. And at that juncture, I would imagine that the IRS will then make a determination as to whether or not those trips
But they've
occurred.
already made a determination. Are you guys telling me we've got some card up our sleeve you've never told me about, that we've suddenly got documents that we're going to validate all of these trips?
My understanding, unless the city manager or the finance director can belie what I'm saying, is that we did not provide any documentation to the IRS after the IRS made the request to so-and-so made a trip to this place.
Right.
Please show me what the purpose or the reason for the trip was.
Right.
The city failed to provide any of those documents to the
So
IRS.
I mean, I saw it with my own eyes. They issued a letter saying you owe us $35,000.
The information provided, I will turn it over to Carl Leffler to explain the information that was provided to the IRS.
Yes,
Wait, if I might. Are you telling me we've got a card up our sleeve that you've never told me about and we've got new information we're presenting to the IRS?
No, the only information that was presented to the IRS is the information that my finance director has on file that was presented to the IRS. The IRS then issued this letter to us saying that some of these trips that was done to Haiti, or the trips that was done to Haiti, certain backup invoices were not accompanied with these trips.
Okay.
And that is the information that our finance department provided. Now, I believe what the attorney is saying is that there's additional information that should have been provided, vis-a-vis maybe the Sister City International, whether it was approved by this council at that time, or and who signed off on it. I believe that's what Regine is referring to.
So it sounds like you're saying we've got new documentation that even I'm not aware of as I sit here tonight that you're going to be turning over to the IRS in hopes of validating said trips.
Scott, don't take it personal. You are
No,
not. You are not the only one in the dark.
Right. So
I am too. So
I
if
don't-
we are in search of the truth, and he may be the one to shed the light, so give him the opportunity to do so. And
Carl?
Yes. I can say the time when we requested this information, it wasn't available at that point. We came to the deadline of the April 15th where we had to make a decision. And the documentation that we had wasn't sufficient enough for the IRS to make a determination. So being savvy and thinking that I have to give my employees the opportunity to appeal. And with the time crunch, I decided to go ahead and say, look, I'm going to reach out to these people, and I'm going to find out if they have any documentation which is not available to me at this moment. And luckily for me, I found that 3 to 4 employees were able to provide me information. And so right now, my strategy, after this audit is done, is to go ahead and request
The
a
IRS audit
review.
is over, though.
It is, but there is an appeal process, and I'm going to see what I can do.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I'm dumbfounded. You know that I asked that this be on the agenda. You knew as we sat down here at 7 o'clock, you have a card up your sleeve. Why wouldn't somebody tug on my sleeve and pull me aside and say, "Psst, Councilman, there might be something here"?
There was no intent to deceive, sir.
Intent might not have been there, but by not doing anything, you did deceive. I mean, I'm sitting up here tonight dumbfounded.
And that was not the intent. Again, I apologize.
Okay.
My intent was to give my...
Now we're going to have to call names. Because I need to know whose trips are verifiable and whose aren't.
Well, it's not conclusive yet, and it's... how can I say? I still am trying to gather other information.
So our city administration regulations say that when one takes a trip, for instance, I'll just take the trips, that within 5 working days of them getting back from the trip, they have to have submitted documentation.
That's correct.
These trips were taken in 2012. That's 3 years ago. And now we're letting them submit documentation that verifies their trips.
No, my availability of the information wasn't there. I've been here maybe, can I say, a year and a half. This is way beyond my time and way beyond the city manager's time. And to get the information that they were asking for was quite a task at that point in time.
But their time to have submitted that documentation was five days after they returned from said trip in 2012.
Yes, it consists more than just, how can I say, a reimbursement request. It consisted of a city manager approval, the purpose of the trip, the whole, everything about this trip, I needed to have the information on.
Council members, we either hold these guys responsible for that money then, if you're the ones letting them provide documentation, because to me, any documentation would now be suspect, but even if it's valid, then it's your fault that you didn't get it on day one when you got here. I don't, at some point, people who break rules have to be held responsible. The IRS has fined us $35,000.
33.
34 and change. We've got a check that's sitting downstairs that's waiting to go. It's wonderful that we're running around to these staff members saying, well, now if you have something that can prove you were cool, we'll take it. But why wasn't all of that done during the period? It's not like the IRS walked in here and the next day wrote us a fine. That investigation went on for months.
It did.
all right, Mr. Director, thank you very much. But in the meantime, we need to reach to a point where we decide how we're gonna go with this discussion. Whether we wanna turn it into giving directives to city manager had to go about collecting the money, and we'll take it from there. But these are things that happened, what, 3 years ago?
That's correct.
What?
Yes.
3 years ago, they should have been dealt with, 3 years ago. And now we are faced with the frustrations of dealing with it. And but we have to put an end as to how we want to proceed.
Allow me to make a motion or suggestion. I'll make a
No,
motion.
man, can I say something before, Mr. Mayor? And you said the fine is about $35,000, right?
$33,562.
Okay. Out of that $33,000, 18.9 is because the city failed to issue a 1099. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That means it shouldn't be the person's responsibility.
No, I'm sorry. The
The
1099s are
yeah,
the
for how much?
The 1099s are the remainder of the amount, which is
About how much?
Let Mr. Lafleur shed
Yes.
light.
The amount of the fines were actually $14,600.
You're talking about
Civil penalties.
for not issue a 1099.
not
That's
issuing the
correct.
1099.
Okay, that means the city failed to provide a 1099 on the money that was given to employees.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's correct. That's
That
the penalty.
means if I don't issue a 1099 to someone that I give money, that's not the person's responsibility to pay that money. That the city's responsibility to issue a 1099 and report that to IRS is not your responsibility. That's mean it's not really $33,000.
No.
Now we're talking about $14,000, the balance, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. For the trip, were the trip authorized by the city council, those trips? Like the toy drive, and if I remember, I've been here for about 2 years, and every year, and we vote to allow a delegation to go to Haiti and go and distribute toys.
Right.
Did you provide those information to IRS?
No, sir, not at that point in time.
Okay, that's another point. When you get audited by IRS and they fine you, right? They give you time to appeal and bring back documents. Then they're gonna make a final decision, right?
That's correct.
Did you provide those additional information? Did you appeal?
Not at the moment. I'm gathering the information to make the next step of appeal.
Of appeal? Okay, that's not the final decision yet.
That's correct.
Thank you.
We're covering for people. We're covering for people. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Your hand was caught in the cookie jar. Administratively, this administration is covering for the sins of the past. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lafleur. And
Allow me to make a motion, if I might, Mr. Mayor. Of the $14,000 that you say were, and you guys don't like using the word fine. I'm going to use it. We were fined approximately $14,000 for not issuing 1099s to vendors. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Is that accurate? I see one head saying no. I see one head saying yes.
That's correct.
Of the $14,000 approximately that we were fined for the vendors, guys, please.
I'm sorry.
It's sort of important. Of that $14,000, how much evidence are you currently collecting to show that those were valid expenses?
Well, I have reports I have documentation from 4 employees that I have to go and review, and I gather the other information, then submit them for review.
No, I believe that's different,
No.
Carl.
I'm
I think the 14,000, and I'm going to read it directly off. Those are for the vendors, and I'll read off the fines directly. 73 vendors at a fine of $100 apiece, which equates to $7,300. We were in violation of IRS statutes 8721, IRS statute 6722, 73 vendors multiplied by 100, which gives you 7,300. In total, it's 14,600.
If I understand, you got about 70 vendors
73
that you
vendors.
give checks, but you
Issued,
did not
that's
report
correct.
that to IRS.
That's correct.
Now, that's
That's
our
se-
fault.
That
Can we
is our
agree on
fault.
that?
That's correct.
Of those 73 vendors, how many of those are we now about to submit evidence that would exonerate them? Okay, so we're gonna go after somebody first for that $14,000. Somebody's for that 14,000. Now, the additional travel, I guess, travel, et cetera, is worth what?
18,000.
Of the-
$18,962.
So
of,
the
of fines or of money spent?
That, correction, that's 11,000 in travel.
There's a mistake.
The travel.
$11,582.49.
Okay.
Okay, so if there was $11,000 of inappropriate travel according to the IRS, which is why they're fining us, how much dollar amount of that $11,000 are you considering is gonna be exonerated by your new card up your sleeve?
That is not my, that is not my call. That's for the IRS to determine.
Yeah, but Councilman, can we reframe the issue? Because
No,
it's
there's no
really.
framing.
Yeah,
No.
just hear me out here. And again, you know, I'm a layperson, but I've had several conversations with the finance people, and so I think I understand
But in
this.
there, nobody bothered to pick up the phone to call Galvin, but go on.
So, again, so if the IRS says, you, Aleem, take a trip, where's your documentation showing that you took a trip to some conference, right? So Aleem doesn't give them any conference information, so what they're gonna do is that $1,000, so it's gonna be tacked on to his salary, right? So when the city, what the city does for salaries is they withhold taxes. Is that correct, finance people?
That's
Yes?
correct.
Okay. So how much money per $1,000 would that be in terms of how much the city is withholding from the taxes? Because the city's not, the IRS didn't say, you violated Rule X, so now we are fining you X amount of dollars. The city said, this person received an additional remuneration, additional salary, and so now you have to withhold that amount.
Right, so
And
we have
then
to
the
go back
person-
and pay the IRS for that amount.
And the person then will go and will receive, if it goes through, the person will then receive a W-2 for the additional salary. So then they're gonna be taxed for that additional, for that difference. Is that correct?
Yes, but the tax has already been paid by us.
Right, but you're going to now withhold whatever that amount is. So per person, I don't know how many people we're talking about. How much withholding, how much is that? I don't know if you can do the math
I
or.
can't, I'm sorry. I can't
Okay.
do it, yeah.
Okay, because I'm just trying to get this
sorry,
down to
but
dollars
you guys
and
made
cents.
incredibly convoluted, a really simple letter that I read, and I guess I'm new with understanding English. The IRS said we owed them approximately $34,000. Am I correct or am I wrong?
That's correct.
I'm sorry.
You're correct. that-
Okay, so if we owe them, we're writing the check. However you want to split that baby, we owe that baby. We still owe that money.
That's correct.
So we still owe the IRS approximately $34,000.
Yes.
The check that's being written, the check that has been written, the check that has been signed and sits downstairs, from whose account does it come?
From the city's account.
So the city is paying back the IRS for the faults of others. I would like us to go get somebody to be held responsible for those others. Please don't hand me something now that you could have handed me this morning or yesterday or the day before. You want me to have faith in what you're doing, and you pull things like this. Welcome to the next negative headline for the city. Thank you for creating it.
Okay.
Again, council members, I think whatever the dollar amount is, even if it's $1, somebody should be held financially responsible for what they have cost the city. It's not you, because you weren't here. It's not you, because you didn't administratively sign off. And it's not Mr. Ghani, because Mr. Ghani wasn't the manager. But somebody else did. These guys shouldn't pay for those people's faults. It's that simple. Make a motion. I make a motion. I make a motion that we continue this to the next meeting, so that we know public hearing has been opened and closed, guys. I make a motion we continue this to. Oh, it has not. I apologize. The hour's getting late. I'm sorry. We've opened and closed and up and down so many times, I
Second your
apologize.
motion, Councilman.
I apologize. I withdraw any motion that just momentarily escaped my mouth. I thought we had already opened and closed. Mr.
Okay,
Mayor,
no, this
public
is a
hearing.
discussion item. We don't need public hearings for that.
Okay, so we're not having public discussion on this tonight?
No.
Okay.